personal growth to business solutions, there is no limit to what you can imagine. It's time to reimagine banking. Centenary Bank, our bank.
We do apologize for the late broadcast of our news bulletin due to some technical difficulties that we are facing. However, we do appreciate you for being there. It is time for the news, and my name is Tandi Wemzumara. Let's have a look at the top stories. China could be next stop for Pope Francis' Ukraine peace envoy. Parliament pounces on diplomats' concerns. Economic experts urge government to quickly address the growing public debt as it puts people's lives at risk. And in international news, controversial legislation in South Africa sparks debates on black employment advancement. We do have the details of these stories and more. Just stay with us. After making trips to Kyiv, Moscow and Washington, D.C. as part of his peace mission on behalf of Pope Francis for the war in Ukraine, Italian Cardinal Matteo Zuppi now may be heading to Beijing, China. After being named by Pope Francis as his personal peace envoy for the Ukraine war earlier this summer, Cardinal Zuppi made a June 5th to the 6th visit to Kyiv, where he met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other top-level church and government leaders, and to Moscow on the 28th to the 29th of June, where he met members of Russia's foreign ministry, as well as Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, but did not meet with President Vladimir Putin. One of the main talking points during each visit was prisoner exchanges between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the return of Ukrainian children forcibly deported to Russia, a request that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made of the Vatican during a visit to Rome in May. We have more details in this Crooks Now report read by Jacqueline Saidi.
Cardinal Zuppi recently concluded the third stage of his mission, in which he visited Washington, D.C. from July 17th to 19th, meeting with United States President Joe Biden, members of the U.S. Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe, participants in the Senate prayer breakfast, and top U.S. ecclesial authorities. Various Italian media outlets have reported that the next stage of Zuppi's mission will be to visit Beijing, where he will meet with Chinese authorities to discuss humanitarian and other peace initiatives, including the facilitation of prisoner exchanges and the return of Ukrainian children. Chinese officials are apparently willing to host Cardinal Zuppi, whose visit has reportedly already been approved, and the dates from which are being organized, and some observers suggest it could come as early as May-August. Should the Cardinal visit Beijing, it would mark a significant step forward in terms of Vatican-China relations, as the two have not had formal diplomatic ties for more than 70 years, when Chinese leader Mao took power and forced the then nuncio to China, Archbishop Antonio Riberi, to leave 2 years later. So far, China, which has a strong relation with Russia, has walked a careful line on the Russia-Ukraine war, refusing to condemn Russia's February 24th, 2022 invasion, but calling on parties to avoid attacks on major civilian infrastructure. China has also urged parties at United Nations venues to resume talks on food security and the resumption of grain and fertilizer exports. China generally takes a policy of non-interference when it comes to conflicts outside of its own borders, but is increasingly seen as a potential mediator in the Ukraine-Russia war.
Youth and Society, YAS, has advised government to dwell much on the development of vocational skills among the youth as one way of reducing unemployment rate. Speaking to Luntha Television, YAS Executive Director Charles Kajolowega said the 25% youth unemployment rate, which is in danger of worsening, should be a wake-up call to relevant stakeholders, including policymakers. According to Kajolowega, government's negligence on the issue will push unemployed youth towards delegates, and this poses danger to the developmental aspirations of the country. Charity Chilanga has more details.
In an interview with Luntha Television, Kajolowega said there are a lot of young people in the country that lack technical skills. Hence, they appeal to government to invest more in vocational training institutions. According to the YAS leader, the Technical Skills Job Initiative will help address issues of high unemployment levels among young people that make the majority of Malawi population. He fears the current trends, if not contained forthwith, will put the development of the country at risk.
To create more opportunities for training. There are a lot of young people outside there that do not have skills. We need to invest in technical skills. And of course we have institutional facilities, but they are not absorbing all young people. We need to expand these facilities.
In his remarks, a spokesperson in the Ministry of Education, Patom Konela, says government has not folded hands on the matter. He says government is reintroducing technical subjects in primary schools so that pupils and students are imparted with the various skills, empowering them to employ themselves and others in the process.
Of education to align itself to the Malawi 2063 vision, where we are implementing the human capital development. So it is that we should revamp technical subjects at primary school level. This includes midcraft and artcraft.
Technical Education, Vocation and Entrepreneurship Training Authority, TEVATA, is one of the institutions existing to provide technical skills predominantly to the youth in the country. However, some observers feel that TEVATA alone does not have the capacity to absorb the population in demand and usher job creation. In March this year, TEVATA statistics indicated that in 2022, only 14,473 students had access to formal TEVATA training out of the 86,476 students that passed the Malawi School Certificate of Education examination. Charity Chilanga, Luntha Television, Lilongwe.
The Center for Democracy and Economic Development Initiative, CIDED, has expressed dissatisfaction with how the Anti-Corruption Bureau, ACB, is operating under its current director, Madam Martha Chizuma. According to a statement which the center has released, they believe that the ACB director is just waiting for her contract to expire in June 2024 for her to leave the office. CIDED has since called on Chizuma to immediately resign in order to save her integrity and at the same time save the taxpayers' money. More details on this report filed by Jacqueline Saidi.
According to the statement by CIDED, the ACB's deafening silence on different corruption issues, including the infamous 250 billion Malawi Kwacha East Bridge fertilizer deal, is not only disturbing, but is also giving credence to speculations that ACB Director Martha Chizuma is just waiting for the expiry of her contract in June 2024 to leave office. Namiwa said it is against this background that CIDED, on behalf of well-meaning Malawians, calls on her to immediately resign in order to save her integrity and at the same time save taxpayers' money. He has continued to say that the case involving Kapundangaga, Malawians don't see the need to report corruption anymore.
The silence, the deafening silence, tells you one thing, that the ACB director, Martha Chizuma, has decided to resign to fate and waiting for the expiry of her contract in June 2024. Now, before that, we are saying the time is now. For the sake of her own integrity, she should resign before being forced to resign.
Furthermore, the statement by CIDED, while citing some examples, including the ACB's arrest of Group Village Headman Mwawa in Manguchi and the conviction of a police officer under the Criminal Investigations Department for Limbi Police Station, has expressed that with the way ACB is conducting its business, it's as if the fight against corruption is merely a fight against the poor. The latter has since given Martha Chizuma 14 days to leave office. For Luntha Television News, this is Jacqueline Saidi.
The Budget and Finance Committee of Parliament says it is having a sight-in on allegations that the Malawi government has not paid its diplomats in various countries across the world for several months. Last week, a published report by the Investigator magazine indicated that diplomats in the United States, Canada, and other countries have gone 3 months without foreign service allowance. The institution adds that the affected diplomats were purportedly struggling to afford basic needs and pay rentals. Herbert Kadanda has more details.
Social commentator Onyezani Kenani posted on his Facebook page a message from a diplomat who confirmed that they have gone months without pay. However, in an interview on Tuesday, Budget and Finance Committee of Parliament chairperson Gladys Ganda said the committee learned about the issue through local media and the matter is under investigation. Ganda said there have also been reports of certain diplomats scoffing taxpayers' money for the foreign work, but they are still gallivanting around the country.
And I'm also aware of other people that from the social media that are in the embassies and are not getting paid. As Budget and Finance Committee, we also have to follow up on that issue because funding was given to the ministry. We should also hear from the Honourable Minister of Finance why people are not being paid and that funding was given to the ministry itself. Is it an issue to collection of our taxes? Is it an issue to do with the foreign exchange? What is the problem really? So we also have to extend that issue to the Ministry of Finance to respond to the Budget and Finance Committee on why some people are being paid.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is yet to comment on the matter. Since coming to power in 2020, President Lazarus Chakwera has filled embassies with political loyalists, friends, and family members, including his daughter, Violet Chakwera, who was posted to the United Kingdom High Commission. The Chakwera administration also stopped implementation of recommendations from a review exercise which proposed that embassies should have between 6 and 8 diplomats per station. In 2018, Malawi required a minimum of $400,000, which is about 500 million kwacha per month to run an embassy. Currently, the country is facing a foreign exchange crisis, with Reserve Bank of Malawi saying in June that the forex in government reserves was not enough to last a month. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, I'm Helbert Katanda.
You're still watching news coming to you live from Bishop Navy Media Center, and we'll be back with more right after the short break.
personal growth to business solutions, there is no limit to what you can imagine. It's time to reimagine banking. Centenary Bank, our bank.
Welcome back, and before we proceed with the news, let's have another look at the headlines. China could be next stop for Pope Francis' Ukraine peace envoy. Parliament pounces on diplomats' concerns. Economic experts urge government to quickly address the growing public debt as it puts people's lives at risk. And in international news, controversial legislation in South Africa sparks debates on black employment advancement. The Ngazi Rotary Club has today handed over an oxygen concentrator at Waila Fistula Care Center in a bid to improve delivery of quality healthcare services at the facility. Speaking upon receiving the donation, Waila Fistula Care Center Board Chair Dr. Grace Chiuzu said the donation is timely as the center only had one oxygen concentrator, which is in the theater. She said their wish is to have adequate oxygen concentrators to cover their 3 wards, therefore calling on stakeholders to come to their aid. Bridget Monoka has more details.
Dr. Chiuzu acknowledged the wonderful work healthy care workers do in helping fistula women and young girls, even though there are inadequate equipment. She said the oxygen concentrator is the work being done in the delivery of their services.
We are very happy to have received this donation of oxygen concentrator. Currently, our oxygen concentrator, which we'll be using is malfunction. So this donation has come at a timely time so that we can be able to assist the women. We know the Rotary Club had options to offer this donation to other facilities, but they chose us and we don't take this.
In her remarks, Lingard's Rotary Club past president Evelyn Van Dam said they have been working with the center for a while in a couple of projects, and when they heard that the only oxygen concentrator which serves in 3 wards is malfunctioning, they got in touch with doctors from the Netherlands who sent the oxygen concentrator to bridge the gap.
Okay, so the Rotary Club de Delegatie has been working with the Fistula Center for quite a while now. We support them in buying the usable sanitary pads that they produce. We donate them to girls in school, to the same schools every year, so we make sure that we see the girls all the way through their school career. And with the proceeds, they support the Fistula survivors here again. So we worked with some doctors from the Netherlands, and when they heard that they need an oxygen concentrator, they helped us and sent it to us.
Waila Fistula Care Center currently has about 45 patients who are undergoing treatment, and most of those are brought by ambassadors. Pastor Fadwek Baulenimita from Munkando Village, Traditional Authority Juma in Mulanje District, has brought in 78 women and young girls since 2016 who are now healthy and dry.
We have been witnessing women going through a lot of abuses or even being discriminated because of this. I am urging men to be on the forefront to help women recover from fistula.
The center has since advised the citizenry that fistula is preventable and curable, therefore calling upon pregnant women and young girls to go for antenatal as early as their first month of pregnancy. Bridget Mwanoka, for Luntha News in Lilongwe.
Economic experts have called on government to quickly address the current huge public debt that Malawi is into if the country is to have room of improving people's lives. Speaking during the start of a 2-day Malawi conference on debt and management in Lilongwe, board chairperson of the Malawi Economic Justice Network, Mejan Bishop Martin Mtumbuka, said Malawi is struggling to effectively deliver most social services due to the debt burden, as most resources are being channeled towards its repayment. Secretary to Treasury Dr. McDonald Mafuta Mwale stressed that issues of debt need to be at the center of every discussion, including about Malawi 2063, hence describing the meeting as important. Bernard Wanza was there.
The Malawi National Conference on Dirt and Management, which has been organized by the Malawi Economic Justice Network Merging in collaboration with the African Forum and Network on Dirt and Development, AFRODAT, seeks to engage all relevant stakeholders to bring them to account on matters relating to public dirt management, which is so paramount for a country like Malawi, whose economy is in shambles due to growing dirt. Merging Board Chairperson Bishop Dr. Martin Mtumbuka told the conference that people who solely depend on government to provide social services, such as schools, hospitals, among others, may lack such services since government is wasting much resources in paying the current debts, thereby putting their lives at risk. While likening Malawi to a family which is being run on dirt, Bishop Mtumbuka said it is not possible for the country to achieve its obligations unless the dirt is well managed.
We should be more prudent in our expenditure, spend within our limits. I think we should also increase our tax base, particularly improve how we collect tax in this country. I think we should also be honest here. The little we collect, use it properly, not only in terms of on what are we going to spend it, but once we have said we'll spend it on this road, we spend that money on that road.
During a panel discussion, Vice Chairperson of the Budget and Finance Committee of Parliament, Raf Juma, decried the disparities in numbers of members in Parliament that also contribute to quick authorization of money bills, thereby keeping government in more debt.
Even when the minister wants to bulldoze, say for example, instead of allowing 28 days be allowed to members in order to apply proper scrutiny on a bill, the minister simply won't waive that and say, let's discuss this bill today and pass it. It will still pass because of the influence of the numbers. So we are saying that sometimes numbers in Parliament don't work to the advantage of the general populace.
However, Secretary to the Treasury, Dr. MacDonald Mafuda Mwale, stressed that government is doing all it can to make sure that the current dirt becomes sustainable.
We have gone through what we call debt restructuring, and debt restructuring is just trying to negotiate with our creditors to elongate or extend the maturities or to spread them even further, so that what we pay now should be less than otherwise, so that we can use the savings from the debt repayments for some economic activities which can generate more resources to pay later when they fall due.
As of December 2022, Malawi's debt was hovering at around 7 trillion Malawi kwacha. Government allocated about 915 billion kwacha in the current national budget to pay debt interest to foreign and domestic lenders. This is Bernard Mwanza for Luntha News in Lilongwe.
Mneno district-based community health worker Mary Brown has been awarded in Kigali, Rwanda for her role in safe motherhood in Malawi. She's among the 12 heroines awarded by Women in Global Health last week at the Women Deliver Conference. Medical Director for Partners in Health Malawi, Dr. Beatrice Matanje, says the recognition is a milestone to the organization's approach in community health development, which uses community health volunteers. Robert Edward has more of the details.
From being a potential victim of untrained traditional birth attendants when she could not deliver at the Azamba before being taken to the hospital where she delivered a baby boy in her first pregnancy, to being passionate of encouraging fellow women to deliver at the hospital, Mary Brown is now a global women in health heroine, the first from Malawi. She has been recognized by the organization at this year's Women Deliver International Conference in Kigali, Rwanda. She is a community health worker, one of the 1,233 under the Partners in Health, a community health development model which uses community volunteers to assist health surveillance assistants in Neno district.
I went to a traditional birth attendant. I did not know the importance of going to hospital. Unfortunately, I had a very difficult labor. I could not deliver there. I was later taken to hospital and luckily my baby and my life were saved.
According to Medical Director for Partners in Health, Beatrice Matenje, Brown's recognition at such an international platform speaks volume on the impact of community health workers in the country in safe motherhood and community health development.
So it is a very great milestone for us as an organization. We were approached by women in global health, not just as Malawi, but as PIH globally. We were asked to nominate someone that has contributed to with the global health, or basically in the safe motherhood arena, and we saw it fit to nominate Mary Brown.
It was for the first time for the Women Deliver International Conference to take place on the African soil, and Brown is among 12 internationally recognized personnel who have moved mountains in the health sectors as recognized by women in global health. She has been working as a community health worker volunteer for Partners in Health. For Luntha, this is Robert Edward.
Now, in other news, a new law aimed at increasing black employment in South Africa is angering entrepreneurs who fear job losses for skilled workers. The government ensures for its part that it is only a question of promoting diversity and equality. Labour Minister Tula Sintlesi recently pleaded that this does not mean that white people are going to be eliminated to make way for disadvantaged groups. We have more details in this African News Report read by Bridget Manoka.
South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, DA, plans to demonstrate on Wednesday in Cape Town to denounce the text, signed but not yet in force, which it describes as a law of racial codes. Its leader, John Steenhuisen, fears that some 600,000 people will lose their jobs because they don't have the right skin color or because they live and work in the wrong regions. 30 years after the end of apartheid, South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world. According to official figures, almost 1 in 2 black South Africans was unemployed at the start of 2023, while unemployment was just 95.5% among whites. The new law will require companies with more than 50 employees to reflect the demographics of the region in which they operate and explain how they intend to achieve this. It also allows the government to set quantified targets for specific sectors. Gareth Ackerman, chairman of supermarket chain Pick n Pay, accuses the law of undermining employers whose workforces does not reflect racial demographics, saying it would put a lot of qualified people out of work and replace them with unqualified people. The most powerful union, COSATU, considers the controversy exaggerated, saying it's a national law, not the big monster the DA presents. According to a recent study, whites make up less than 10% of the 60 million South Africans, but hold more than 60% of leadership positions.
That African News Report read by Bridget Manoga also brings us to the end of what we had for you in this edition of our news bulletin. But before we go, a reminder of our top stories. China could be next stop for Pope Francis' Ukraine peace envoy. Parliament pounces on diplomats' concerns. Economic experts urge government to quickly address the growing public debt as it puts people's lives at risk. And in international news, controversial legislation in South Africa sparks debates on black employment advancement. My name is Tandi Wenzumara. Thank you so much for keeping me company, and do continue watching Luntha TV as we continue to bring you more news and other programs. Goodbye for now.